Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar organized by Doxity in partnership with Syracuse University. My name is Carolina. Nice to meet you all, and I'll be your host for today's event on behalf of Doxity. I see here that the first people are already starting to join in. We're going to wait a few minutes before starting to allow everyone to connect. In the meantime, feel free to say hi on our chat here in Zoom, and please tell us where you're from, since we are very curious. First of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us and thank our panelists for being here with us today. I want to introduce you all to Dr. Sri Ramakrishnan, the Assistant Director in the Graduate Recruitment at Syracuse University. And we have also with us two students, Emeka and Lanre, that will tell us more about the MBAs at Syracuse University. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Together with them, we're going to discover why getting an MBA in 2024 is essential, with a live discussion between Dr. Ramakrishnan and the two students. And you will gain insights on social entrepreneurship and corporate sustainability. You'll also have the possibility to interact with our speakers and ask them questions. And talking about that, I'd like to remind you that after the presentation, we will have a Q&A session where you'll be able to ask our questions to the panelists. So don't be shy and just type all of your questions in the Q&A section here in Zoom, and we'll go through them at the end of the webinar. Also, for those of you interested in receiving the certificate of attendance by Doxity, stay tuned because we will post a link to get the certificate at the end of the session. Okay, so I think that we are able to start now. Welcome to those who just joined us. And without further ado, I'm now leaving the floor to our panelists for their presentation and debate. Enjoy and see you later.
Thank you, Carolina. It is a pleasure to collaborate with Doxity again on this interesting webinar, I hope. And I'm happy to introduce two of our current Whitman MBA students today, Emeka Ossai and Lanre Egunlae. Thanks for joining me. Let's start with, how are you guys doing? Because you're on the other side of the world right now, and it is 10 p.m. for you. So after a busy day, so if you wanted to start off a little bit with that, you're currently in Kuala Lumpur, correct? Emeka, do you want to start off?
Oh, yes, yeah, we're in Kuala Lumpur. We're on the business in East Asia trip, and thank you for having us. And we're having a great time. It's a very interesting, immersive learning experience, looking at how business is done in this part of the world. Being in Singapore as well. And it's interesting to see the dynamics of business and economic environment, in this part. It's been a very interesting, educative and also fun experience as well.
I hope so. I hope it's a lot of fun. Lanre, do you have anything to add to that? I think you're just keeping tabs on Emeka.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Lanre Egunlae. Well, I think I would say it's been fun, learning new things in Malaysia and in Singapore. Great to be here.
Thank you. All right. So what I wanted to do through this interactive session with you two is, because you have come to the Whitman School of Management at Syracuse University. You started the MBA program this past fall 2023. But both of you are, I wouldn't say the traditional set of students in terms of exploring a full-time MBA, because you have come with a lot of prior work experience. So I wanted to address certain things about your educational background and your pre-MBA days and your experience, and touch upon a little bit and in terms of understanding what in there triggered you to potentially pursue an MBA, and then bring it along to what you're doing in your MBA courses, and how your time at Whitman is helping you navigate the space of general management, and then take you in towards your career trajectory of where you want to go next, right? So with that in mind, as a general kind of meandering conversational, what should I say, map, let's start off. Emeka, I'm going to start with you. BA undergraduate degree in theater arts.
Yes.
A long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, dinosaurs had left the earth at the time, but still.
Okay. All right. So you started in theater arts, and you have essentially continued every job opportunity, if you will, or taken on every opportunity and have made it like your career direction to go into social entrepreneurship. Right. So let's talk about how initially what was your interest in theater arts, and then how you have used some of that training or educational content into navigating the rest of your entrepreneurial spaces.
All right. Okay. Thank you once again. Yes, it's always a surprise when I tell people I studied theater arts. So most times people think I had a background in business or economics, but for theater arts, for me, it was actually a coincidence. I was trying to get into college, and it was a bit tough, and then eventually when I passed the exams, my dad was like, hey, don't miss this opportunity, just go in and, study, get a degree, and that's how I got into theater arts. But it was very useful for me. Excuse me. It was very useful for me because in theater arts, you learn how to put a production together. You learn how to manage a crew. So you learn HR, you learn how to resolve conflicts. You learn, because we always had, brutal schedules, 6 a.m. rehearsals. If you are not a performer, you have to be a producer, you have to be a stage manager, or you had to write. So there's a role for every single person. So people think like, oh, we just go there and have fun, we just sing and we become pop artists, But no, there's a lot that actually goes into the production of, a performance, there's even technology. So I picked up skills there. And one of the things I learned was to work closely with people and to work with different kinds of people. People who come to rehearsal and they were not just in the mood, and you had to learn to work with them. And that was very critical for me. And then that skill was what I then used when I was about leaving my undergrad, was to start running projects, was to start putting together, performances. They started with trying to organize parties, productions, comedy shows. And I realized that, for me, maybe I wanted to do something much more concrete. And that's how I moved on into asking myself, what do we want to do with life after school? And I realized that it seemed like none of us had an answer. And I said, let's produce a conference, and then we called that conference Wake Up and Smell the Coffee. And that took me into a world of interacting with people from KPMG, PwC, different walks of life. And, years later, I landed here, and this is me. Great.
So Lanre's smiling because he has a similar trajectory, but you came with a bachelor's degree in human anatomy, and you followed it up very recently with a master's in public health. But your work trajectory right from the get-go has been maybe a little bit related to pharmacology when in your teaching career. And then after that, you've just been on the business side of things. Walk us through that. What is up with that? How did your trajectory pan out?
Thank you very much, Sri. Unlike Emeka, I don't have the talent of theater art practitioner. Right from I've always have this empathy for people, and that was what really drove my passion into human anatomy in my first degree. And thereafter, I entered into the academia. I was a lecturer, assistant lecturer for a while, and I've had many people ask me, because currently, apart from my master's in bachelor administration that I'm doing currently, I also have 3 different master's degrees. I've had people ask me, why didn't you go for PhD? Why are you having like 4 masters? And the reason for that has always been what drives me part-time in my career journey. Okay. Empathy, I've always wanted a situation whereby I can add value to people, add value to business. So I started in the academia, like I said, and after like 2 years, I entered into the pharmaceutical industry. I started as this medical sales rep, you know, and I've had the privilege of growing through the rank from medical sales rep to a general manager, managing a whole business in the whole of Africa. I had my first master's in medical physiology, my second master's in public health. I am my third master's in leadership and business sustainability. This has always been because one of my career aspirations has always been continuous learning and personal improvement. And that has really, you know, helped me along in my career journey.
Okay, that's it. I'm going to go sign up for my next master's degree now, because now I have to keep up. So this is great. It's, I think one of the main reasons why I wanted to start with touching upon your educational background rather than, you know, starting with what you're doing in the MBA and how you want to take it forward is most people, when they think about approaching, you know, a representative to talk about an MBA program, usually come with this mindset that I don't have a business background. Is that going to be a problem? And here we have the two of you who did not come directly from your finishing your undergraduate degree or immediate first master's degree and then say, I want to do an MBA, but you came because, if I'm understanding correctly, your work over the last 10, 14 years has sent you into the business world and you've seen growth in there. And now you think it's the right time to actually pursue an MBA, right? So it's a very different approach to why you're coming in for the MBA, because technically I could say, we could, you know, for the sake of argument, we could say you don't really need the degree, but now you are pursuing the degree. I mean, we'll love having you at Syracuse, don't get me wrong, but let's talk about what was the motivation that actually led you to, you know, thinking about formalizing the educational part of it to get the MBA degree. Lanre, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Because you were growing in ranks and you said, I mean, hopefully after MBA, you're not going for another degree, but I can't keep up. Give me some time.
I bet you this will be the last.
Okay.
Masters. Okay, so for me, at every stage in my career journey, I normally take time out to reflect on my journey and also look at where I'm going to, okay? And I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for like 15 years. And I can say I've seen it all. You know, I function in different departments, sales, marketing, operations, administrations, you know, and at the time, when I was reflecting on my career journey, I think I felt like, you know, looking out for something else, you know, new challenge, new experiences. And I thought of it that the best thing for me would be to get an MBA that will help me to pivot, you know, into another industry to see how things has been done. If you have ever worked in the pharmaceutical industry, you can get to a stage whereby everything will just look the same. You'll probably be doing the same thing all over again. So when I thought about that, and I discussed with one of my senior colleagues, and that's why networking is very, very important, to keep the right people around you at every stage of your career journey. So I spoke with one of my senior colleagues about my passion and my plans, and that I'm looking towards, you know, having an MBA with specialization in supply chain and marketing. And we sat down and look at it that it will be a very good one. And so set up some criteria for me to look at in selecting the right school, you know, and the right program to go for. And so basically, I will say reason why I chose MBA, it's three things. One, to pivot to another industry. Two, to expand my personal and professional network beyond Africa. And then three, also to broaden my my exposure about business. Let me look at business in another sphere in the world.
Great. Yeah. So, Emeka, what about you?
Oh, yeah, thanks. So for me, it was a question of when, not if I would have it, most likely in undergrad, most people always felt like I would go straight into corporate, and over the years, what had happened was I'd been to the US on a fellowship experience, in design. So, all through the years, I was designing learning programs, working with young people, building. I was an early player in terms of like startup development on universities. And completely as I kept moving on, I realized that I'd always been very interested in business education. In my undergrad, I used to, buy Financial Times, Wall Street Journal. I just was always interested, followed the 2008, financial crisis. And I realized that in my circles, to everyone had gone for their MBAs, So, to Lanre's point also, who you hang around is very important. That relationship is critical. I saw a lot of my friends, their careers also took off after doing their MBAs. And so during my fellowship experience, it was a fellowship for young African leaders, by State Department. I had some time at a business school in Texas, and I realized that I really loved it. If you ask people, I loved the classroom conversations. I enjoyed it. And so I said, okay, you know what? I think it's time, but I kept pushing it forward, And then at some point I said, you know what? I'd gotten to a point in my work, I wanted to move to the next level. I designed the programs where I reached 100,000 young people. We had different partnerships, but I felt like there was a new level that, one had to reach. So the first thing for me was to also understand what my gaps were, to see what the gaps in my experiences really were. And then secondly, I also wanted to build new relationships, because every time I came back to America, it seemed like everybody was always excited about what we were building. At the next level, we want to start building innovation spaces for university entrepreneurs. And everyone was always like, oh, that's so great. Tell me more, tell me more. And I said, okay, you know what? You can't keep going to the US 3 months, 4 months. You go back, go and sit down somewhere else, learn and build new relationships, and at some point I talked to my friends. At some point they even got tired and were laughing like, oh, Emeka, he's not going for this thing. And at some point it looked like it became a conversation. Now you need to go for this thing, and when I had started looking at it, interestingly, my journey into Whitman, was one of the alums of our program who had reached out to me and say, hey, there's a conference going on. Would you like to attend? And I said, okay, yeah, let's see. And I had a very interesting conversation with Syracuse University. And I just thought that, you know what, just go for this, go for the MBA, get the knowledge. And it's been a very interesting experience, because the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know. That's very, very critical, no matter the experience that you really, really have, And then secondly, also, I also wanted to start doing things I didn't like doing, and there was some, Lanre is, he would tell you, we have a running joke, in the class, we call people by quant, their quant skills. So most quants, highly quant, and, while I love the qualitative side of things, I sat down after the numbers had been crunched and made strategic decisions. I didn't like the grimes of, putting numbers together. It was something, but I said, you know what, I wanted to stretch myself more. I wanted to also reinvent myself. And at the end of my MBA, I wanted to raise the kind of funding. And I realized that the best place for this to really happen, it's in America and then in New York, so come back here. And thirdly, also come for a program that has your time. Oftentimes it's not also a question of, the kind of MBA, it's what is the right fit for you. And I realized that Whitman was the right fit for someone like myself, because they understood me, they understood my needs. And then I could tailor my learning experiences in the direction that I wanted to go.
That's great. So essentially, we're through this conversation, it's coming out more and more what, it would be a recruiter's dream, I would say, if everybody came to the table with the understanding about like not only looking at immediate practical return on investment, but also understanding the philosophy behind why a business education is important, especially in the current times that we live in, because every avenue is an opportunity for business, isn't it? Whether it's education, whether it's arts production or theater, or you're, studying human anatomy, but not necessarily going into a medical field, but going into the business side of things. So let's stay with that, going with like, your focus into the classrooms, because you did touch upon a little bit with that, about stretching yourselves. So I know your favorite classes. I'm not going to point them out. I will let you talk about your favorite classes, but it is a healthy mix of not only understanding what is the foundations for business education, business fundamentals, but also allowing you to choose courses within your specialization credits. This is how the Whitman MBA works. So, but let's start with who wants to go first. I'll give you the choice. Talk about maybe one or two courses that specifically resonated with you in some way, whether it was, easy and it was something you were familiar with, whether it was, really challenging and made you work quite a bit, your overall classroom experience, coming back into the classroom after being employed for a while and suddenly having to do assignments and midterms. And so let's talk about your classroom experience. Oh my God, Emeka's really excited about that. Lanre, you want to start?
Okay, yeah, I will go. I can go first. Well, really, I have had the privilege of taking interesting courses in the past 1 year. And the greatest challenge for me has always been that coming to a full-time schooling, after many years, it was a very huge challenge for me initially. But I just have to cope. I remember in my first year taking one of the statistic classes, that is data for decision making. Professor Anna will give us assignment that will take your whole weekend. We will not sleep. Every one of us, we just have to gather ourselves together, trying to find a way. And for next thing, everything that I learned at that time seemed to be very new to me, despite the experience that I had in the pharmaceutical industry. So for me, I would say if I would choose like two courses that that I really love, not that I didn't love others. One was strategic management. I know Emeka will want to choose that one too. Strategic management. I like that because immediately you enter the class, the lecturer, the professor, the first thing will be that, tell me about what is new in the industry. So it goes beyond classroom theoretical knowledge. So that for me exposed me to different business perspective. You need to know what is going on around you. You need to know different reasons why companies, organization fails, why some are successful. What is responsible? If you have the opportunity, what will you do differently? How will you approach issues? That I really love that class. And beyond the normal exams, 50% of the grading is based on your interaction with your colleague, presentations and all that. So that brings to bear what you've learned. You need to practice it. You have to treat and, experience and present different case studies of different organizations in different sectors. So it was fun for me, and it was an opportunity for me to learn new things. The second one was in supply chain logistics management. Man, that one was something else. The professor that took us was one of the best, let me say, Professor Wu, you know. And the reason why I love that course is because we do the theory part, then you will do the practical part. Okay, so you need to learn how to marry the two, what you have learned in class, because there was a subscription we did for game simulation whereby you assume a position of like a supply chain manager, and you need to make decisions. You know, I was exposed to new things that I've never experienced before, you know. So I learned a lot. I learned how to think on my feet. That's not the fact that I had the experience before, you know, I just need to think straight and fast. Okay, accuracy is very, very important, and timing is very, very important. Those are the things I learned in those courses, and they really shaped my understanding about how to address issues at any time when you are saddled with the responsibility of providing direction wherever you find yourself. And it's been interesting.
Great. Emeka? And you cannot choose the same classes, Emeka. I know you wanted to, but no.
Yeah. Hopefully, no, there'll be no bottlenecks. That's a class joke in supply chain, you know. Sometimes Lanre would just answer the question, I'm like, what? We're in the same class, you know. So you can tell he loves supply chain. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. You know, but it's very interesting. Every class was very useful, to be honest. I like you know, they were just amazing classes. My first class apparently was economics, you know, macroeconomics. You know, they would tell you that I could keep going on and on in that class and asking all the questions. I remember one time being accused of taking the professor in a different direction because we'll just begin to talk about some economic policy, you know, somewhere maybe on crude oil, you know. And the interesting thing was also the professor was also came to the class as a learner. You know, he came in to say, I want to learn more about where you guys are from. You know, and that sort of was very, that academic vulnerability, I think I'll call it that, made us feel very safe, you know, to come up with ideas. We would debate things like student loans, you know, we would debate things about, you know, demand curves, you know, we would debate things about negative externalities, you know, public goods, you know, and those things were very interesting to me. Why? Because, you know, I worked in social impact, social entrepreneurship, and I was always interested in why are some nations much more prosperous? You know, that had taken me to read so much about, I wanted to hear from an academic standpoint, you know, and so economics was very macro, especially macroeconomics was very, very interesting for me because that shapes how business is done, the environment in which we do business. Yeah, strategic management, of course, you know, we had to, you know, because you are invited to bring your perspective, you know, no perspective is wrong. It's just a question of, you know, when, you know, and how you see that whole industry, you know, that was very critical. But allow me to please chip in venture capital.
Okay.
Venture capital, and largely because I wanted to also build a fund because I wanted to start building spaces in developing economies for young people to launch businesses, you know, and I wanted to understand more things around funding, you know, what's a down round, you know, equity splits. And the professor was you know, you could not come to class not prepared. It just was not, you know, and then she would put me on the spot. Like, Emeka, you were in the startup, I'm like, no, I'm no don't do this, you know. And you had to read before coming to class. And then it would be anybody. She could call on anyone, you know. So she could just ask to say, what happens when a down round happens? You know, that you have to be on your feet, you know. What's the best way to, you know, to value a company? You know, and we had to like debate, and is this a viable company? Is this a scalable company? And I enjoyed it because it was all about startups, you know, and entrepreneurship. And it was just very fun because, and, you know, she had a very fun way like you yourself. You know, she'll be like, sometimes you'll be talking in class and you're going up and she's like, stop there. You were going there, but you just branched somewhere completely where we don't even know where you're going to. And the whole class will just laugh. You know, she said, yeah, you got it right, but where did you go to? What happened? You just turned right, you know. And we will all laugh because we felt very safe. It was okay to fail in the class. And that class for me was super, super, super interesting. So venture capital, strategic management. There were also a lot of classes like marketing too. Marketing was also very interesting. It was voluminous, but it was fun. Finance too, funny enough. I find the qualitative side of things, looking at debt, versus equity, looking at why a company is over leveraged, those kind of conversations where we talked about Apple, and why a company will have so much money, but will still go and borrow. And then we realized there were a lot of issues around like tax, so all those like things like capital structure was a very interesting conversation to really have.
That's great. It's very rewarding for me as a representative of the school to actually see that excitement and that enthusiasm that as you are talking about your coursework. Because when I meet students at the prospect stage, I'm not looking for this level of enthusiasm. I'm more trying to understand where is the fit and what is the why, and is the MBA really the right direction, and are we reciprocal? And then to see that, yes, it's not until later that I get the validation for myself that yes, my direction and channeling, I was on track. We did something right here, and it's very clear to see that enthusiasm on your faces as you're talking about the courses. Very rewarding emotionally for me, so thank you for that. But you bring up two interesting aspects that I want you to touch upon here. If you recall, I did not start with the introductions to say where you're coming from. I did not ask you which country you're from and what your educational experience in your home country was like. And I think this is a nice juncture at which we want to address that. But the other piece of that I want to tie it in with is the sort of generic understanding that because an MBA is also another advanced graduate degree, the general understanding might be like, oh, I have to worry about grades. I have to worry about, coursework. I have to do assignments. But that's not really just the only thing. It's actually teaching you to apply your theoretical content into a real world scenario. And it could be in a scenario where it was not necessarily your expertise with respect to your work experience prior, correct? And you're learning business principles through that and how to constantly adapt. And in the process, you're also learning time management and trying to be accurate and also, not ramble, I hope. But so let's talk to me a little bit about that, your educational experience from back home to what you're experiencing currently in the classroom, and how that is sort of shaping you or challenging you, just a little bit. Let's touch upon that a little bit. Lanre?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Sri. Like I said earlier on, my first degree was in 2006. And after that, I've not actually had educational experience, a full-time educational experience. All my previous masters has always been alongside with work. Okay. So when I made the decision of, leaving work to go
and where is work? Just let's go back for a second to home country.
So
yes, talk about
that's Nigeria. So I'm from Nigeria, and
yes.
I've had the opportunity to work with different organizations, both indigenous and multinational. My last place of work was with Serbia International, the subsidiary of Serbia International, which is Swifa Nigeria Limited. I worked there as the national key account manager, where I was responsible for managing the institutional business unit, and in pharmaceuticals, you have two major business units. You have the institution, which include the hospitals, right, and government agencies. Then the second one is the pharmacy outlet, okay? pharmaceutical industry is highly regulated in Nigeria. So it takes a lot to work in that industry. So that is where my background is. That's where I'm coming from. So when I took the decision to further in my career to go for an MBA, first thing I told myself is that I'm not going to worry about grades because, because
good choice.
I'm going there. Yes, I'm going there to learn, you know.
Yeah.
So, and really, when I came in, I was not bothering myself. I'm not here to have first class. I'm not here to have A or, you know, my courses, but notwithstanding, I still have to put in my best, you know, and really, it really pays off for me. In my first year, my grades were excellent, you know. I can say that confidently, but that was not my intention. My main intention into MBA business school is to learn, to network with people, to, you know, to look at business in a global perspective, to learn from the best, to network with new people, to learn in a new environment. Those come in, and I told myself that. I told myself that I would take my academics very serious, but the main point will not be to have first class. The main point will be to learn, and really, I've been learning. A lot have been learning since I've started this program, and that's been awesome.
Great. That's great. Yeah. Emeka, do you want to echo your sentiment?
Yeah. Yes, it's interesting experience. Background also from Nigeria, and I did mention like from theater arts, you know, my background, and it's two different worlds completely. One, it's more in the arts, you know, think about liberal arts, you know. The other is very analytical as well, because by the way, the MBA at Whitman is a STEM designated MBA, so you're going to do a whole lot of math, you know, which things I thought I'd run away from, I'd escaped finally, you know, and then they came back. I remember I always joking with Lanre, like, oh my God, and they warned us never to skip these things, you know, and it's I started from university, actually. I started seeing the things I was very, very passionate about, you know, and I worked in economic development from a broader sense. So youth entrepreneurship and youth employability. And I launched my company pretty early, right out of university. But I didn't go full-time, like completely immediately. I worked as kind of like a chief of staff, you know, for my mentor who was running a chain of quick service restaurants. So I sat in the room where, do we invest or do we not invest? You know, do we look at this location and look at the analysis? Do we want to do that? So I sat in those meetings, and then I made sure all the units worked hand in hand. So from, you know, finance, you know, to operations. And I was the person who always made sure everybody was, you know, meeting up to their timelines, you know. And for me, that was so it was very entrepreneurial, you know, from the early stage, seeing my boss, you know, who had left a multinational to come and run a business. And all along, you know, coming to Whitman as well, you know, I came in, people will tell you who have known me from start would know that Emeka can be crazy, you know, is, you know, extreme. I'm not averse to risk, you know, I don't fear risk, you know, so I came in, you know, immediately. And the first thing I went to was the incubator, you know, because for me, it was very important that, you know, to have practical experience as well. And I remember emailing Professor Torrance, like, hey, this is me. This is what I'm interested in. And he said, interestingly, we are building the incubator again. Do you want to come on? I'm like, sure, why not? You know, and immediately we got into the hatchery, and I'm so excited to see what's happening at the Korea hatchery, you know, currently really today. Secondly, also was in the learning experience was, I think, being able to ask for help. You know, no matter what you know, there's something that you don't know. Just being able to ask for help. And, you know, I think it's called self-deprecating humor. I remember I always laughed at myself, you know, in the class, you know, I'm like, what did he just say? You know, what was that? And, you know, somebody might just laugh around me, you know, but that ability to be able to walk to a professor and have a chat, you know, and have a conversation, and that vote of confidence, you know, And for me, grades also were not, I think I even studied harder at Whitman than I did for my undergrad. I really like, I remember my wife was like, wow, you really, hello, high achiever, because she's more the academic side, But for me, I just was never somebody who really, but this one, I really poured my mind into it, and I wanted to be sure that even if I didn't do well, I put in my best. And for me, that was very, very critical. And then also knowing a bit around things, I saw the practical application of supply chain and operations. So even our everyday life in terms of like planning our lives, in terms of queuing our work, in terms of understanding what a priority job should be and what it should not be. And the thing for me here also has been Whitman has, because I'm somebody who's very active, if I don't find things to do, I like experiential learning, I like conversation, I'll be frustrated if it's purely academic. And so from my background into Whitman has welcomed me, in the building is always, we joke, floor 3, and, I have nicknames for everyone, but in all of those things.
I want to hear about mine, but we'll do it off camera. Thank you. Yes, I did not know that, but now that I do, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so from that background, and looking at, the economic development, and it's interesting where Syracuse is currently with the investments that are coming into central New York, and I found myself being in some of these conversations with some professionals at Syracuse as well. They tell me where Syracuse was before COVID, where it is, and the economic recovery that's really, really happening. I like to hear things about economics, and that has really, really helped me here, at Whitman. And lastly, it's how you can have a chat with a professor, like, hey, dear professor, this, and I read this, and then he's like, oh, hey, why don't you come over for a chat? I remember even one of the professors of social entrepreneurship invited me to speak in his classroom. When he heard that, I did a mid-career internship at the university, exposing students to social entrepreneurship. And then you are invited in to also bring what you have while you're also building what you don't have. So it's a question of, it's a balance, and that's something I've enjoyed, really so far at my time. And even for people listening, this is not about, just blasting Whitman's horns. Recently I just won, the Orange Innovation Fund.
Yes.
The Orange Innovation Fund. And in the summer, I'll be running a startup acceleration program for 10 university startups in Nigeria. So it's that kind of support and molding the MBA into my own image. It's something that I have really, really loved. They're not forcing me to be a finance guy, but they're saying, hey, you will need some level of finance to be able to do what you want to do. And that for me has been interesting.
Right. And very quickly, I want to touch upon, because I know we're getting quite a few questions here and I want to get to the questions, but very quickly, you're going to be doing your campus labs, what should I say, like the startup version, and take it on with 10 universities in Nigeria. But Lanre, you're actually going into a completely new industry for your internship, just as you wanted. Do you want to tell us very briefly about that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sri. Like I said earlier on, I was intentional about this program.
Yes.
And like I said, that the reason why I chose to go for an MBA, mainly to pivot, for my career. So this summer, I'll be having my internship with JP Morgan. JP Morgan is the biggest bank in America and one of the biggest in the world. The first 5 in the world, actually, to work with. It's going to be a new environment for me. I'm excited about that. And I also told myself that I'm going there with an open mind to learn new things, because I know the environment will be new, the industry is new. So there's a lot for me to learn there. And so these are one of the benefits of my MBA, of coming to Syracuse. It's been an awesome experience so far.
Excellent. All right. So let's touch upon some of these questions. Carolina, do you want to
Okay,
take
yeah,
us
of course. Of course. Thank you for the really interesting debate. We can go straight to the questions. So the first
Sure.
one is, how has the MBA program at Syracuse helped you, I think is helping you, balance profit and purpose in your career?
Okay, I think I can go first.
Mhm.
Okay, so like I said earlier on, it is always good to be intentional about any decision you want to take in life, especially in career. For me, I chose Syracuse University Whitman School of Management because of three reasons. One is the excellent curriculum of the program. Two, because of the global business perspective of the whole program, right? And that I can say with all confidence that I've experienced quite a number of opportunities and experiences that have changed my mindset about business models, okay? From last year, December till now, I've experienced different experiential trips. We were in New York, we were in Boston, we visited different organizations to look at how business is being done. Currently, I'm in Malaysia. Last week, we were in Singapore, to look at how business is done in another continent. Like I said, my primary experience was in Africa. Currently I'm in America, looking forward to start a summer internship, right, with one of the biggest banks in the world. Coming to East Asia is to complement my experience, to look at business in different perspectives. This wouldn't have been possible if I'm not a student in Whitman, right? So I can say with all confidence that it pays off. My choice of coming to business school is really paying off, really. So it's a lot of benefit for me. I can say that.
Great.
Fantastic.
Do you want to add to that?
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to add something.
Right. For me, it was to build the relationship as well, to take Campus Labs to the next level. And for me, evidently, like I said, the grants, the relationships. I met people in the Syracuse and the Central New York tech ecosystem. And to Lanre's point as well, I went to Silicon Valley, so imagine you read a lot about Sequoia Capital and then you see the building. I was at Techstars, you see, you are there looking at entrepreneurs. We went to different places. I remember visiting Accenture Labs where we were all joking, hey, can you hire us? We were all laughing, and that disruptive ecosystem, where else does it happen? It's in America. And, Whitman has helped. Whitman has a very highly ranked entrepreneurship program, and entrepreneurship professors. And for me, it's helped me. And every time I just talk about what it is, I competed in Panache, I competed in another competition. And every time I see someone say, hey, you're doing something interesting, let's chat, let's talk, let's grab coffee. And for me, it's been super helpful. And because of that, look at what's happening to me also in the summer as well. I have something that I'm going to run, then I can come back to pitch. And even lastly, I'm doing an independent study. It's a 3-credit course, and it's all on Campus Labs. From how do we make Campus Lab an investable company? How do we remove the bottlenecks? Where else would you do that, besides, at the Whitman School?
Fantastic. Thank you. And the next one is, could you elaborate on some of the significant benefits of having an MBA in today's job market?
Okay, having an MBA program, degree rather, it's very, very important for so many reasons. So I'll just talk about 2 or 3. One, you get to a stage in your career whereby you want to enhance your skills. So skill enhancement is one of the reasons why you go to business school. You want to look at business in another perspective, right? Secondly, if you want to pivot from your current career, like I said earlier on with my own story, No, so going to a business school would be the right choice for you to, do that. And of course, networking is very, very key, because this is one of the key benefits in business school. You meet so many people. You meet people with different background, people with different perspective, to what you thought you know before. And of course, adaptation to digital age is very, very key also. So these are the reasons why going for a business school in this modern age is very, very key. You want to learn new things. You want to look at how you can handle different issues and challenges in our modern day work. There are a lot to learn in a business school.
Yes, in the startup world, there's a lot of debate about an MBA degree, actually. Over the years, there's always this back and forth. But one of the things I've also said is that it's very important to know how to learn. My world comes with a lot of, hubris, arrogance, and coming to subject yourself under some tutelage. Back in the day, you had a master, you had to learn. And it's interesting, somebody who has written so many papers, let's say on disruptive innovation or something, right? In as much as you've done that, he's done a lot of theoretical research. And there's something that I remember we're talking about crossing the chasm. There's this book, very popular book, and how a company moves and jumps that curve. Or you talk about the innovation diffusion curve, right? And there's something that does, to you. And also, if you want to be an owner manager as well, you might be crazy creative, you can spot opportunities. There are 0 to 1 guys, there are 1 to 100 guys. An MBA is always very, very helpful. And you never know, your next CFO might come from that classroom, right? And then I remember you want to do some financial projections. I know who to call in finance to say, hey, we want to do these projections. Can you please come take a look at it? And then lastly, also, I remember when I did marketing, because I did an elective on in undergrad. It was very qualitative back then when we did the 4 Ps of marketing. Now there was nothing like marketing analytics, I remember, in my undergrad. And right now we are discussing, analytics. For me, it's like, what happened? It seemed like they switched, somebody changed the rules, honestly, when I started seeing some modules on marketing. And so what it does for you is to also come out from your high level, and you come and see that the world has really, really changed, and it's important to connect to what is really, really happening. Marketing is different from what I knew it, to be honest, completely different. And that's something I think an MBA can actually really do for. And it never hurts to learn, honestly. There's something you would always take away.
Perfect. Thank you. And the next question is from Alice that asks, how important do you think it is for modern businesses to focus on corporate responsibility, and why?
Okay, I think I'll take that. In the world where we live in now, for example, we just even from Singapore, sustainability is very critical. There's a whole conversation around ESG. And what is clear is that it's no longer about the profit cannot be the only thing that you pursue as a business. We've seen where the world is. We've seen the disasters. We've seen the environmental challenges. So even some companies call it CSV, which is creating shared value. I remember the company I was consulting for, it's in such a way that everybody wins and we can be sustainable. I know Coca-Cola also talks about sustainability. So it's very critical for the world in which you live in, because you operate in an environment, you operate within a framework. So let's look at, for example, you operate in an environment and you don't have, the educational system is horrible, right? What is that company doing to ensure that the educational system as well can produce the talent that it needs for its business? So it's in the company's own interest as well, to invest in the development of talent. We just read recently that Microsoft is putting $2.2 billion in Malaysia to train AI talent. Right. So it's in the company's best interest for it to survive, not even just to survive, to thrive, that they become involved in this conversation. Gone are those days where you look at businesses from, binary perspective. I take my profit and I run away. We've seen it in heavily capitalist societies. how a few can become wealthy and you leave so many people behind. And what happens is that when you keep those people out of the system, it comes back to bite you because you don't have a safe environment in which to operate. So it's very critical that every company begins to look at this point if they are not, or else I don't know how long they will be in business for, to be honest.
Well, in addition to what Emeka said, in one of our strategic class, the professor always say this, WTP, that's customer willingness to pay. Customers will pay premium for any company that is socially responsible. I think it is in Jim Collins' book, why some companies are great, that talked about sustainability. It said doing well by doing good. Okay, so customers are always willing to pay premium price for any organization that is socially responsible. So it's a very key point. Customer responsibility, social responsibility, corporate social responsibility is very, very key to longevity of any organization.
Thank you. And what advice would you give to someone considering an MBA but unsure about the timing or investment?
Yeah,
I would say take the decision now. Take the decision now. Okay. My simple advice would be intentional about your decision. Time waits for nobody. That's a general, cliche. Time waits for nobody. If you have made up your mind that this is the next thing that you need to do, then take the decision now. The best thing for you is just for you to be intentional, right? And connect with people that you know are along that path of career that you're looking at, and network with them, discuss with them, and take step immediately. Don't think twice.
I'd say yes. I laughed because that's something, attention that we all face. It means you're even doing something right. You're thinking about developing yourself. I say don't follow the hype. Look for what is the right fit for you. And there's a lot of hype around the MBAs. There's a lot of hype. I participated in a couple of other business school programs at the conferences, but one of the things I realized is who helps you to achieve your end goal. I remember Lanre saying something about being intentional. He was talking about pivoting your career. What program helps you to achieve your own goal? In bringing it home to myself is that Whitman does not have 500 million people in the program. One of the big selling points of Whitman is it's a small class size. So it's easy. There's resources for you. We actually have something called the MBA happy hour on Fridays where we just connect. And we had a dean come around and we had a very interesting conversation, over drinks. We just talked about different areas of business. And because they have your time, the business school can devote resources for you. So for me, it was a fit. It was easy for me to go to anybody and talk about my dreams. Yeah, as against going to somewhere where there's a lot of hype. It's very cutthroat for the opportunities. I've heard of business schools like that where everybody's hiding things from each other. In Whitman, you hear, hey, that's very interesting. We should chat. And for me, that was very, very important for me. Secondly, also, it was close to New York City. Whitman, for the school, also the network of the school. If you own New York City, you virtually kind of like own the world, yeah? So, to be honest, it's more than, you can say you own 100 cities, but if you own just New York City, and honestly, you are very well connected. I remember in my first 3 weeks, I got an email to say, come and meet the CEO of GE Capital. And I had a chat, 15 minutes chat that was very transformative. Where else would that happen? Would they have your time? It's for me, that was the best fit for me. And that's why I chose Whitman.
Thank you so much. And the next one, I think these are really encouraging testimonials since I'm from Nigeria too, and I'm a bit scared to move to another country. How's the life in New York?
Let me clarify. We are in the state of New York. We are in the city of Syracuse, in the location that is known as upstate New York. You can either take a 45 to a 60-minute flight from Syracuse to New York City, or you can take the train, which is about 5.5 hours, or you can drive, which would be 4 to 5 hours. Okay, so let me set that context, because I think sometimes it's very easy to conflate the city of New York with the state of New York and forget that, we're not necessarily in the heart of New York City, but there are advantages to being in Syracuse. And you guys tell me how it was moving from your home country, coming to a cold place, not a hot place. How did you accommodate to that? Go ahead, guys.
Okay, yeah. So for me, one of the things my senior colleague told me was adaptability, and it was key for me when I came into Syracuse, because the weather was totally different from the experience in Nigeria. In Syracuse, you experience a lot of snow. Like jokingly, I normally tell my friend, I love snow, but that is when I'm indoor, not outside, So, but really adapting to the environment was a bit challenging initially, but because of my aspirations, so I look at it as an opportunity to also learn from new environment. So now I'm used to it, right? The environment is perfect, but I would say it all depends. Just make sure that you develop that adaptability, to learn in new environment. And it's always fun if you are factoring that into your learning plans.
I mean, I think the question came from Nigeria. If you can live in Lagos, you can live anywhere, if you can drive 2 hours to work, which we all did, it's every environment comes with its challenges. There's no way you go somewhere where it's warmer, it's too hot. You go somewhere where it says, oh, it rains in Seattle, it rains too much. So there's always something, but because you have your goal in sight, those things won't really matter. The great learning environment will keep you warm. That's the way I would say. We had 8 o'clock classes, if you ask Lanre, and you're like, oh my God. But that's like life, Some days you're like, oh, but you get up in the snow, you wear your boots, and then what it does, it even builds mental resilience, and then you know how to cope, in any environment. Because at some point, if you want to be a global corporate leader or business leader, you have to move through different environments. Here in Kuala Lumpur, it is hot, in Singapore as well, but, you have to do what you have to do, and that's what I'll say.
Perfect. And the next question is specifically for Lanre, I think. It says, thank you very much. I just graduated from pharmacy school and I'm interested in harnessing the potential of Nigeria's natural products, which have not been validated. I'm hard-pressed between doing an MBA or a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship. Do you have an advice?
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, my personal opinion, right? Speaking from what I've learned so far in the business school, I will always advise that you choose an MBA, because that will give you an opportunity to look at different business model. It will give you opportunity to also network with people. If the Nigerian natural product is your goal, you can network in the course of your program in that business school. In most cases, people look at masters, depending on the course, as being academic in a way. okay, compared to an MBA that is a professional program whereby you have opportunity to learn from different people, you learn different business model. So in my personal opinion, I will advise, or I will suggest rather, that you consider doing an MBA program. That will give you an opportunity to network with people on that your career aspiration.
Yeah, I think this could be connected to the next question and last question we have. That is, for someone chasing a career in the medical field, would you advise to go for an MBA before the MBBS degree? I just finished my first degree in human physiology, but I currently run an edtech startup.
So it also depends on your goal or what you intend to do in life, right? So if you're contemplating on either going for an MBA or MBBS, there are some schools that you can do the two programs concurrently. It depends on what you intend to do, really. If you go for a business school, that will be fine, but you can also try and network with many, give you different perspective about schools that are running the two programs together. And that, I think, in my own opinion, that would be a very good opportunity. If you have fun, like Syracuse, I have some of my colleagues in class that are running MBBS, and also they are also part of our class, business school class. So it even gives them the opportunity to look at business model in the medical perspective, right? And they are also able to interact with people from different backgrounds, and of course apply that one in their business specialties. So it will be good for you to look for school that can run the two together, and that will be perfect.
Okay,
I just
great.
want to add one piece of advice to that.
Of course.
From the educator standpoint, right? While you're looking at the business side of things for everything, when you're conflating or trying to concurrently learn two academically rigorous degrees, you need to really focus on understanding your why. And if you don't really understand your why and pursue something drawn into the popularity or drawn into a hyped up version from coming maybe a small set of people, it may not necessarily resonate with your particular reason for wanting to pursue something. The second piece of it is give yourself a timeline. This is not a sprint. This is definitely not a sprint. Prepare for a marathon. And the two guests we have today who are talking about their experience, keep in mind they're coming as non-traditional students into the MBA with over 14, 15 years of work experience, and then deciding now I want the degree because of a particular reason. While there are programs that will allow you to come in with a year, 2 years of work experience, Whitman MBA is one of them. You also want to understand what is the reason why it's necessary for you to get an MBA at that particular point in time. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think we answered to all the questions. I'd like to remind you that in the next few days, you will receive an email from us with the contacts from Syracuse University. So if you have any other questions, you can write to the contact email specified in the email we will send you, and you can do all the questions you want. And also, we will also send you the recording of this webinar. So if you want to take a deeper look at the webinar, you can do it. I'd like to thank our panelists that are with us today, because I think we have a pretty nice and deeper also overview of the Syracuse University and also of the MBAs. So thank you very much. And thank to everyone being connected with us.
Yeah.
And
Carolina, thank you very much for participating with Doxity yet again. And I just want to add to our two current students. thanks for taking the time when it is 11 p.m. in your local area right now for joining this call. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if you want
All
to
right.
request a certificate of attendance, you can click in the link that I'm sending in the chat right now and request it. So thank you so much for being with us today, and have a nice day. I hope to see you again in the next webinar organized by DocSit in partnership with Syracuse, of course. Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.